us and present a case. And we will gladly use that during our session, so the participants, can actually get real feedback from subject matter experts and each other. So as we mentioned, we really appreciate when we have an interactive community. If you have any questions during the didactic portion, you can put it into the chat, or feel free to unmute if we're in the case presentation. We do stop the recording during the case presentation so that people can talk freely if they want. We do offer social work contact hours for these sessions. To receive credit, we ask that you fill out the evaluation form that's sent out after each session. And also, we do require you to attend the live sessions so that you can sit through the case presentation. We record each session and we have it housed on our website, and I also send it out after each session, so you can go back and see the didactics. However, you can't receive credit if you didn't attend the live session. So we'll go ahead and get started with some introductions. I'm Krista Opstedal. I'm the Project ECHO Director here at NDCPD at Minot State University. I'm also a caregiver for my Nana, who's living at home. And most currently, I'm an MPA student. I had my first class last night and I'm really tired because it went till 10 p.m. So Kyle, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Kyle Erickson. I'm the evaluator for Team ECHO here at Minot State University.
Thank you. And Jody?
Hi, I'm Jody Patchen, and I'm support staff for the ECHO.
And I'm going to introduce Jessica. She is actually our presenter today. Jessica Reiswig is a research associate at the North Dakota Center for Persons with Disabilities, who has committed herself to promoting inclusive work environments. Recognizing the impact of workplace diversity, Jessica advocates for acknowledging and celebrating diverse identities and perspectives. Her aim is to establish an environment where every individual feels accepted and empowered to authentically express themselves. Jessica is prepared to share insights into embracing the LGBTQ+ community. Her strategies offer a pathway to fostering workplaces that honor and respect the voices of each individual. So please help me in welcoming Jessica today. And I'll let you go ahead and take over and share your screen.
Let me unmute there and get my slideshow going. Okay, switch this. Sorry, every time I do a Zoom or Teams meeting, it feels like the first time. So hopefully you can see the correct screen there, and hopefully my connection's good. If anyone has trouble understanding me or seeing my slides, just chime in and let me know. And that would be great. I'm really excited to be here today to have an opportunity to talk about building inclusive workplaces with a focus on the L+ community. And I want to start with a little activity. So if you're able to, it would be great if you have a pen and a small sheet of paper, or perhaps a note apps on your phone, or maybe a blank document on your computer. We're just going to take a couple minutes to do something a little different. I want you to think back about a time where you encountered a stranger, someone that you don't know. Maybe it was on your way to work this morning, observing someone while you're sitting at a stoplight. Maybe it was someone you were behind in line for coffee this morning, or when you were taking your dog out. Just someone you noticed that you personally do not know. And if you're like me and you work remotely and you haven't left the house today, that's fine. I would hope you could pull something from your recent memory to think about. So if you're willing, just take a little time to write down a few sentences that would describe this person. I'll fill in the silence with some music and a timer, just a few sentences talking about this person. It could be what they're doing, what they're wearing, you know, whatever pops up. So we'll go ahead and start. And hopefully my music is not too loud. For some reason I can't control that volume now. seconds left. Awesome. Thanks for participating in that if you were willing to do so. Let's reflect on what we happened to write down. Look at those sentences you used to describe this stranger that you encountered. So in looking at the words you used, how many times did you use the word she, he, him, her, or his? So maybe if you used a paper, you could circle those words on your sheet or highlight on your device, or just take a mental note. If you're comfortable throwing that number in the chat, you certainly can. There isn't a right or wrong number. I would say, I think I used 3 she's and his or hers when I did this activity for the first time. So it's just really a moment for us to take inventory of how really deep rooted it is within us to make these assumptions about people that we essentially do not know, and recognizing how natural it is for most of us to use words like she, her, him, or his that may not be appropriate actually. So my name is Jessica, as Krista told you, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And you might think, well, yeah, I could have guessed that based on my name, maybe my appearance, maybe my voice and mannerisms, maybe because you've been in past sessions with me or know me. But the truth is, if you don't know someone, then you are not going to know someone's real identity unless they tell you. And that's because we make these assumptions like we did in this warm-up activity, but they aren't always right. And when we make those assumptions and they're incorrect, even if it's completely unintentional, it can be hurtful and send damaging messages. So today we'll learn more about that, and we'll also discuss positive impacts in the workplace when employees do feel comfortable bringing their full selves to work. We'll go over some current terminology just to educate ourselves and have an understanding, and we'll explore effective practices to build a culture of inclusion in the workplace. So why inclusivity matters? The Williams Institute looked at 36 research studies that examined the effects of L+ supportive policies and L+ supportive workplace environments on business outcomes. The outcomes highlight a clear association between these policies and environments and the positive effects on the workplace, such as heightened dedication to work, enhanced relationships in the workplace, increased job happiness, and improved well-being for L+ employees. Moreover, these L+ friendly policies and climates also correlate to a decrease in discrimination against L+ employees and a greater willingness for someone who identifies as LGBTQ2+ to be able to openly express themselves at work. So less mistreatment, more openness equals increased job commitment, less job turnover, better team building, better work satisfaction, improved health, and it enhances the productivity of the L+ employed community. In 2018, the Human Rights Campaign did a study called Workplace Divided, where it found that 46% of LGBTQ2+ workers are completely closeted at work. That means they are not telling anyone about their gender identity or their sexual orientation or their partners. 50% of non-L+ workers don't think they have any L+ workers in their workplace, which could be right and could be wrong. 28% of L+ workers are totally closeted, not only in their workplace, but also in their personal lives. So when someone is underrepresented like this, they could feel like an only in the workplace. And if you really think about it, most of us work 20, 30, okay, more like 40+ hours a week, most likely. So that is a huge chunk of our waking hours that we're spending in the workplace. So the impact of colleagues really can't be understated. These daily interactions hold significant influence over an individual's sense of well-being and that feeling of overall inclusiveness in the work environment. And I think it's also should be noted that employers who have inclusive L+ practices gain support and respect from not only people in the L+ community, but also of other marginalized groups. They will recognize those efforts as an indicator that they have an overall inclusive work environment. So it's really a win-win. And so we're going to go over some terminology, but before we dive too deeply into it, we just wanted to note that we're not advocating that employers have to have these conversations. This is just to help you have a foundational understanding, which can contribute to both comprehension and development of respect in the workplace. So why is it important to respect a person's identity? Why is it important for us to understand these terms? Proper use and understanding of gender identity terms is a meaningful way that signals courtesy and acceptance. Using someone's correct pronouns could also be compared to simply pronouncing someone's name correctly. And I remember we discussed the importance of this in a previous session, how disrespectful it can feel when someone repeatedly is, mispronouncing your name or not getting your name right. So using someone's correct name and correct pronouns is a simple way of respecting your employees. So we'll cover the basics. We'll explore pronoun usage. We'll break down the LGBTQ2+ acronym, and we'll learn about other terms with the goal of helping workplaces foster inclusivity and to create a warm, welcoming, safe environment. So basic terminology is sexual orientation. Most of you probably know this, or you might know all of this, but it can be a good refresher for all. Sexual orientation refers to the sexual attraction to someone of the opposite gender, the same gender, or both genders. So sexual orientation includes heterosexuals, lesbians, gays, bisexual, asexual, and pansexual. And then we have gender identity. And this is the person's sense of one's own gender. Gender identity may not correlate to what's on their birth certificate, the sex assigned at birth. Gender identity is a person's deeply felt internal knowledge of their own gender. And then we have gender expression, and that refers to the way someone expresses their gender identity through maybe their manners, their interests, their appearance, or their dress. So a simple way to look at it is gender expression is how someone presents themselves, and gender identity is how someone or who people know themselves to be. And here we have the LGBTQ2+ acronym. I will explain more about the acronym at the end, but we'll just start with going over the basics of the acronym that I chose to use today. So L stands for lesbian, and that is a word used for women who are attracted to other women. G stands for gay, and it's a word that's more typically used for men who are attracted to other men, but it also can be more broadly used to refer to anyone who is attracted to people of their same gender. B is for bisexual. It is used for people who are attracted to both their own gender and another gender. T is for transgender, or sometimes called trans-identified, and this refers to a person whose gender identity, who they know themselves to be, as something that does not match the gender that they were assigned at birth. Q is for queer, or sometimes questioning. Queer can mean not fitting into these traditional labels, not feeling like you maybe identify as a lesbian or as bisexual, and really questioning and trying to figure out their own identity. And just personally, I know that I grew up thinking queer was a bad word. And so when I was learning more and hearing this term thrown around, it startled me and it made me uncomfortable, but I did have some uncomfortable conversations about it because I wanted to understand it. And there's been a reclaiming in the word of the L+ community, and it is not a bad word, and is something that you will commonly hear, maybe more so in the younger generation, who are really, not sure how they identify, not sure where they stand yet. So I'm happy to say I don't feel startled when I hear someone refer to themselves as queer anymore. 2 stands for two-spirited, and this is an identity used by Indigenous people for a person who has both male and female spirits within them. And the plus is an inclusive representation of all the other identities, including non-binary, pansexual, intersex, and asexual, which we will go over in the next slide. And I just wanted to address that I want the acronym to just slide off my tongue and feel really natural, but it's a mouthful, and it's always changing. And you'll talk to one respected, educated person, and they will use a certain acronym, and then you'll talk to another equally educated, respected person, and they'll use another. And it's like, well, which one do I use, and why is it always changing? And it's just an acronym that is addressing a diverse range of people who might have different sexual orientations and gender identities, and it's changing and it's growing in a really respectful way that you can address this or substitute this acronym when you're feeling unsure, when you're giving a presentation and you're saying it over and over, is to just say L+. So you'll hear me substitute it, and you've heard me substitute it, and it's a really respectful way to address everyone, the entire range of people, without tripping over your words or worrying that you're offending someone because you're saying the wrong letter in the wrong order or whatever. So some LGBTQ2 plus terms that we will go over is asexual, which you'll sometimes hear called ACE for short. Asexual refers to a partial or complete lack of sexual attraction or lack of interest in sexual activity with others. Asexual people may experience conditional, little, or no sexual attraction to others. And we found some studies that show that people mistakenly will assume that individuals with disabilities are asexual, that they can't or don't have romantic or sexual feelings. And this is happening because of a lack of information and education on sexuality and disability. And that's the major contributing factor to that stigma. And it's not true. It can be true, but it's not always true. Pansexual describes someone who has the potential for emotional, romantic sexual attraction to people of any gender, though not necessarily in the same way or to the same degree. Cisgender is a term used to describe a person whose gender identity aligns with what is on their birth certificate. You'll hear people call themselves cis or cisgender, and that just means that they were born, their birth certificate says female, and that is how they identify also. Intersex people are born with a variety of differences in their sex traits and their reproductive anatomy. So there can be a wide difference among intersex variations. It could include differences in genitalia, internal sex organs, hormones, chromosomes. And then we have non-binary, and non-binary is an adjective describing a person who does not identify exclusively as a man or a woman. So non-binary people may identify as being both a man and a woman, somewhere in between, or completely outside those categories. And while many non-binary people also identify as transgender, not all do. Non-binary can also be used as an umbrella term encompassing identities that we are not going to go over today, but you're welcome to dive into more, such as agender, bigender, genderqueer, or gender fluid. And last, we have transitioning, which is a series of processes that some transgender people may undergo in order to live more fully as their gender identity, who they know themselves to be. So if you're referring to a medical transition, this may include hormone therapy or gender affirming surgeries. It may include a legal transition where they're changing their name legally or on their government IDs. Most commonly, it's just the social transition because there's more access to that. It's a less daunting task, and maybe that's just what they prefer, where it would be changing their names and their pronouns. Transgender people really have the choice that they can choose to undergo some, all, or none of these transition processes. Personal pronouns. So simply put, personal pronouns are words that we use to refer to people. Like we talked about earlier, the he, she, her, him, his. These terms fit some people, maybe even most people, but not everyone identifies with them. Some people use they, them, theirs as their gender pronouns. And it might not come naturally to refer to someone as a they, them, theirs. It may feel really different, but if that is the pronoun that the person prefers, it is the pronoun that we should use. For example, if you have a coworker and their name is Kai and they tell you their pronouns are they, them, then you could say to a coworker, Kai needs this report today. Can you get it to them by 5 p.m.? Or Kai's going to be out of the office next week. They're attending a conference in Austin. So it's just a simple substitution there. And it really, once you say it more and more, it doesn't feel that different. But it is also important to note that refusal to use their preferred name and gender pronouns could be considered a form of harassment when it's done intentionally and persistently. So it's really important to pay attention to. Many individuals will use simple little steps like using their personal pronouns in their email signatures or their Zoom handles or written materials. And it isn't limited to just people who identify as L+. Many cisgender allies, including myself, will put their pronouns as an expression of support. And in general, we just naturally make these assumptions about pronouns all the time, most of us at least. And a lot of these assumptions would just be based on physical characteristics as well as people's names. It's important that we understand that we really don't know someone's pronouns and we can't judge their looks and their voice and their mannerisms to tell us. We don't truly know unless a person tells us. And the act of making that assumption can be damaging, and it can be offensive if you're guessing their pronouns and you're wrong. It can make for some really awkward moments. And with that, asking for and giving pronouns is still something that feels strange and new to a lot of people. It can feel clunky, unusual, awkward, and that's just because we're so used to not giving them, and we're used to just making these assumptions on our own. And now we've learned, hopefully, that these assumptions can be wrong and why we shouldn't make them. It's important that we start making the conversation around pronouns and using them more common. So please just remember when you're feeling hesitant that referring to someone by their correct pronoun or asking for pronouns is a simple way to say, I see you for who you are and I respect you for it. And if you make a mistake, which I have before and I probably will do again, just politely apologize, commit to doing better, and move on. And right now, studies show that Americans are surprisingly, at least to me, 50-50 on their comfortability level with using gender-neutral pronouns to refer to someone. A study showed that 52% of Americans say they are either somewhat comfortable or very comfortable using gender-neutral pronouns to refer to someone. And on the other side of that, 47% say they are somewhat uncomfortable or very uncomfortable doing so. So it's really right down the middle, which tells me that this is a conversation that's happening and we need to, stay with the times and educate ourselves and stay on top of the changes and, making it a more normal, comfortable thing. So some prompts for how you ask someone their gender pronoun could be, how would you like me to refer to you? What pronouns do you use? Hey, how would you like to be addressed? Or you could just set that example by saying, hi, I'm Jessica, and I use the pronouns she, her, hers. If someone tells you their pronouns, you can write it down. If someone tells you their preferred name that might be different than what's on their hiring papers, write it down so you're not making those mistakes and you can remember it. And I can't remember a time where someone ever got my pronouns wrong, but I have had times where supervisors have gotten my name wrong over and over, not pronouncing it wrong, just completely calling me a different name. And it does kind of get to me like, oh, am I not important enough for you to take the time to learn my actual name? So I can't imagine how it would feel if I was, someone on the L+ community who was giving my preferred name, my preferred pronouns, and someone was doing that. I think it would be, probably a whole different level of feeling unseen and possibly disrespected, even if that's not the intention. So sorry, I got sidetracked there. So now that we have the terminology down, let's take a look at some effective practices to affirm that policies, expectations, communications, trainings, and attitudes are non-discriminatory and inclusive. Updating policies. Employers should ensure that all anti-harassment, bullying, and non-discrimination policies include L+ individuals. A starting point would be reviewing policies and making updates as needed. For example, instead of having policies that tell women to wear makeup or tell men, to stop wearing jewelry, it's better just to have fair rules. So General Motors, which is a very large company, made a change that got a lot of attention. The CEO, Mary Barra, replaced a long, drawn-out 10-page dress code with just 2 words: dress appropriately. This simple change let people decide how they want to look, and it also helped bosses guide people on what's right for them depending on their jobs, not their gender. But this simple idea could have a problem if bosses are letting their biases affect how they enforce the rules. And there was a study that showed that about 1 in 5 L+ workers have been told or had coworkers strongly imply that they should be dressing more masculine or more feminine. And on the flip side of that, workers who do not identify as L+ only experience that 1 in 24. That's quite a contrast there. And this shows that there's still a lot of work to do in order to be fair and respectful to others, no matter how they look. Setting expectations. So regardless of how someone feels about another person's gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation, all employees should be required to treat everyone with respect. Organizations should define appropriate workplace behaviors that are consistent with the employer's stated beliefs and values about inclusion, such as using an individual's preferred name and pronouns, and speaking up when someone is clearly not being treated respectfully. This process is about changing employees' workplace behaviors to be in accordance with company expectations, not about changing an employee's personal beliefs. Communicating with employees. When it comes to sharing information about a person's gender identity or their sexual orientation, that should be solely left up to that individual. While one employee may disclose information to an human resources or a manager, they might not be comfortable having that disclosed to a wider audience. And then you may have someone else who's very open and eager to express themselves at work. Maybe an employee going through a gender transition, for example, might want to very openly disclose to the workplace and to their work that they're going through this, so the employer can educate coworkers and let them know what to expect. But employers should only share that information regarding sexual orientation, expression, identity, transitioning with others when specifically asked to do so by the individual. Training employees to recognize and eliminate discrimination in the workplace is valuable for every employer, and updating organizations' presentations to cover L+ individuals is essential to provide equal opportunity to all employees. Such trainings could be included in both new hire and ongoing trainings. Topics that could be included are a lot of the topics we went over today very quickly, which would be the LGBTQ2+ terminology, gender neutral language, inclusive conduct, how to be an ally, reporting bullying, discrimination, or harassment, and an understanding and addressing implicit bias. Some resources, if you're looking to dive more into it, or you're looking for some trainings to perhaps dive into yourself, would be Mental Health America and SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. And here are some ways that employers can also recruit purposefully. Sharing a diversity and inclusion statement on your company website job postings stating that all employees are valued, including the L+ community. Show potential job candidates inclusive practices at your workplace from their very first encounter with your organization. That could just be having pronouns on your email. Advertise benefits available for same-sex partners, such as family leave and health coverage. Actively recruit from L+ friendly job sites. So you're looking for people with all gender identities, all orientations. Review your job postings to ensure gender neutral language. Remove references to only male and female gender options and hiring materials. I'll say that I have a family member who, when looking for a doctor, when looking for a job, is very much influenced by whether those websites and those job applications have options for, more than just male, female on an application, or have L+ friendly verbiage on their sites. Something that's very small is a real big green light for them. So just these little tiny changes can make a big difference in who is coming to your workplace and who is going to give you business. Encouraging employees and candidates to share their pronouns in conversation or written communication, such as their Zoom handles, email signatures, and highlight employee resource groups and recruitment materials. Sorry, tripping over my words there a little bit. Also, inclusive employers are also removing gender-based pronouns from handbooks and company materials, simply replacing the he or she with they. Simple way to indicate support and acceptance of non-binary individuals. So what it means to be an ally. An ally is a person that wants to stand up for the equality of a marginalized group that they are not a part of. And here are some simple ways that you can be a good ally: using your voice, educating yourself and educating others, correcting people when they misgender or use the wrong name, even when they're not around, speaking up for people. And remember, you don't have to put on a presentation for people, and you don't have to be front and center at the Pride rally to be a good ally. Small actions are powerful as well. And thinking back to our previous DEI session where we talked about microaggressions, which are small moments that maybe don't seem extremely hurtful and maybe seem tiny, but they can add up to negatively impact someone. There's actually a positive opposite of that we can use as allies. For example, every time someone does use inclusive language, it sends a small positive signal that this is a safe environment where you can be valued and respected. It's a simple way for managers and coworkers or anyone just to show support. So these small moments can really make a big difference and add up over time to really influence someone's experience. And because I think I'm doing okay on time, correct me if I'm not, I have a friend who is a married woman, and she works for a very large company where her coworkers, there's people coming in and out, there's lots of networking, and it's often assumed that she's married, she's got the ring, so she must have a husband. And these moments have really caused her to be distracted at work, and it's even given her some issues with anxiety outside of work about coming to work, because a lot of times when she corrects a person that has made an incorrect assumption, they can become very worked up, thinking they've offended her, they've upset her, and she's having to, in a way, console them and comfort them for making that mistake, rather than having this conversation about their partner. So for example, maybe they see her wedding ring and say, "Oh, what does your husband do?" And she responds, "Oh, actually, I have a wife." And before she can even go into talking about her wife, the person's just having this reaction of, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Nobody told me. I didn't want to offend you." Oh, that, just this moment of panic, which is really natural to feel, embarrassed if you think you've offended someone. But then she's put in this position of, "Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. Yep, we've been married 10 years. Oh, okay." Trying to, like I said, kind of console them in a way. And she's told me And then the conversation's just done there. They're not actually trying to hear what my wife does. I don't get to say my wife's a veterinarian. She works in the emergency hospital downtown. Like that doesn't even progress to that point because it's turned into this moment of the person's feeling uncomfortable. She's feeling like she wants to make them not feel uncomfortable. And so it's really unfortunate because now she finds herself thinking of when she's going to be meeting new colleagues. Okay, so how can I quickly just throw in there that I have a wife? I don't want to make it awkward. How can I just slide that in there without causing this little disruption or hoping it doesn't get brought up when it becomes really tiresome and it takes away from those moments where someone could potentially be building a relationship. So just by using maybe the term, oh, I see you're married, what does your partner do? That whole moment of awkwardness could have been avoided where you could be, building some relationships and workplace morale, which we all know leads to better results in the workplace. So I just wanted to share that as an example of a real life lived experience of someone who has to deal with that all the time. And then I just wanted to say to think of being an ally as an action, not just a label. It's a verb. And so just simply saying you're an ally is not enough, really. You need to do things if you want to truly be an ally and support the community. And I hope that I've given you some examples of really small things that you can do to support the community. I found this quote from Alan Joyce, CEO of Qantas Airlines. It says, "You cannot get the full potential of people in your business if people have to hide who they are and cannot contribute to the organization because they're scared of the impact it'll have on their career progression." So it just really shows me that, when employees feel comfortable bringing their full selves to work, it's going to lead to increased engagement, creativity, productivity, less job turnover, and overall job satisfaction. And we really want to foster diverse and inclusive environments at our workplace because that's what builds and promotes innovation and strong team dynamics. So that's really what I was hoping to foster today with you guys. And I just thank you for coming with an open mind. I know this can be an uncomfortable training to attend for some people. And I hope that maybe you learned something or maybe you feel like a little bit of a light lit up in you to maybe make some changes that can really help you in your personal life, make some relationships, but also mostly at the workplace, because we really want to create a place where everyone can feel safe and welcome coming to work. And then there are some resources here from where I pulled statistics and some of the data that I shared today. If anybody wants to dive in there and learn more, that would be great as well. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen because that is the end of my slideshow, Krista.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
No
If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute. If not, we'll go ahead and jump onto the case presentation. And if questions do pop up as we're progressing with the session, we can definitely address those in the additional resources that we follow up with. And Jessica, I really appreciate all the statistics that you pulled. And I was really taken back by the improved health outcomes that people have when they feel like they're included, and that kind of highlights exactly why we included this session in this series, because we're really trying to improve mental health outcomes. And I guess I just never realized that there was such a correlation between being happy at work to like improved overall health. So thank you for doing that really deep dive into the literature and finding us some of those statistics. So we'll go ahead and jump in